And so they go out, but a day passes, 2 days pass, 3 days pass. Everybody starts to worry. The king starts to fret, can't sleep. A week passes, and he's really upset. A month passes, and everybody's plunged into grief because none of them come back, and none of the dogs come back either, and they're gone, and that's it. So nobody goes into the forest after that. They're scared. Same thing's going to happen to them if they go in. So they don't go. Years go by. Only thing that's seen is, you know, the still forest, hawk, eagle overhead, until one day, what happens?
Sir Lancelot shows up.
That's right. That's right. The king's looking out, and riding toward him is this amazing looking figure that gets the king all excited. Something rises up inside of him when he just beholds the guy. He's like so full of energy. And he said, this is no ordinary huntsman. This is no ordinary adventure. Something's going to happen. The guy rides up. He dismounts. He says, take me to see the king. And he goes to see the king. And what's the first thing he says to the king? Anything dangerous around here that he's doing? And the king says, matter of fact, there is. But I don't want to send you out into the forest because it's too dangerous. And you probably won't come back either. And what's the adventurer say?
Just what he's looking for.
That's right, that's right. I laugh at fear. That's just what I'm looking for, is an adventure. So off he goes. And as soon as he gets into the forest, his dog runs away, catches the scent of some wild creature. Anybody here ever caught the scent of a wild creature? Oh, yeah. Goes running away into dangerous territories. Anybody, that ever happened to anybody here? Oh, yeah. And he finds himself in front of a pool, and he's standing there wondering what to do when... That's right. Grabs the dog, pulls it down into the water. The adventurer's freaked out, is running back to the castle, and says, "Oh, I need help. I need men to come with me. I'll go. And a whole troop of them go off into the forest, and when they get to the pond...
Buckets.
Huh?
With buckets.
With buckets, that's right. They were with buckets. And a really cool part of the story, which we missed, was you were going to be running through the forest for a little bit longer, and I had redwood fronds that we were going to push against your... So you can virtually feel the redwood fronds now as you push your way through the forest and under the branches and over the roots. And then you get to the forest and you start bucketing out the water. Faster, bucket it out, faster, bucket it out. Finally, there at the bottom of the pool lies...
Wild man.
What's he look like? Hairy, color of rusty iron. Huh? And what do they do? And what do they do? His asshole has hairs? Oh, I see. They chain him up. And you got to be the wild man being chained up. And that was really resonant for some of you. That was really resonant because some of us still have chains around us. And they drug him out, they drug him through the forest, and they drug him across the fields, and he came to the castle, and he came to the courtyard, and a big cage came out, and the king said,
"Put him in that iron cage, and upon pain of death, no one is to open the door to that cage, blah, blah."
Yeah. And so everybody came, and they looked at him, and they scoffed, and they laughed, and they jeered, and they made jokes, and they pointed. And then they just forgot about him. And months went by, a long time went by, until one day, what happened? A little 8-year-old boy with a golden ball came out to play, bouncing his ball, whee, whee, throwing the ball high in the air, whee, higher still. And the ball came down inside the cage. Oh no, my God, oh no. Wild man, will you please give me my ball back?
No. Not unless you open the door to my cage.
I can't open the door to the cage. The king said nobody can open the door to the cage. I'll get punished. I'll get beaten. So he ran away. He was afraid. But he came back the next day.
Or years later.
Yeah, which could have been years and years later, which happens to us, right? Wild man, please give me my golden ball back.
No, sir. Not on your life. Not unless you open the door to my cage.
And he runs away again. He's all afraid. And the next day he comes back, which could be more years. Until what? Until he's suffering so much. He wants his ball so fucking much. He comes back to the wild man. He says, Wild man, I didn't know what to do. Even if I wanted to give you the ball, or give you the key, I couldn't. I don't have the key. I don't know where it is.
The key is under your mother's pillow. There you will find it.
So he tiptoes up the stairs because his parents are out hunting. And he puts his hand under the pillow. There's the key. It's cold. It's heavy. He grasps it. He runs down. He goes to the cage. He puts it in. He tries as hard as he can, but the key won't turn. But he doesn't give up. He doesn't give up. He pushes and he pushes. He tugs. He turns. How many of you had that experience? He turns. He pushes. He tugs. He grunts. And finally, he tries so hard that his finger slips and his finger gets cut and the blood goes down into the lock. And what happens? The lock opens because that's what was necessary, the wound. The lock falls open. He pulls on the door, the wild man pushes on the door, and the wild man steps out. And what's the wild man do?
Goes back in and gets the ball.
Yeah, he's true to his word. He reaches in and gets the golden ball, and he hands it to the boy, and then he looks, and he sees the forest, freedom, home, his place. And he takes off running. And then what happens?
Don't leave.
No, not first. No. What's the boy say?
Don't leave me.
Yeah. Come back. Don't run away.
Don't leave
Come
me.
back. I'll get beaten. Don't go. Don't leave me. So the wild man comes back. And he picks the boy up. Picks the boy up. Puts him on his shoulders. And off they go towards the forest. And the boy's leaving everything behind. Everything behind. He doesn't know what lies ahead.
Except for the gold ball. Right.
Yeah, he's taking the golden ball with him. He's reclaimed his golden ball. So they get to the forest. And what happens back at the castle?
The king and queen come home, and that's where we'll pick up right now.
Yeah.
Okay. So the king and the queen came back, and the king saw the cage, and lo and behold, it was empty. What has happened while we were gone? He asked the queen. The queen went up looking for the key to the cage, but it was no longer under her pillow where she had hid it. I don't know what happened. And I can't find our son. And then they felt a dread fear that something terrible had happened. That the wild man had run off and done something terrible with their son, or even worse, had killed their son. The king sent men out into the fields to look for the boy, but they came back. No one caught a sight of him. Great grief came over the kingdom. A great grief came over the kingdom.
And when the wild man reached the heart of the forest, he lifted the boy off his shoulders. And, you know, the imagination is such a powerful thing. Close your eyes right now. Feel yourself being lifted up off the wild man's shoulders, those strong hands holding you. And the wild man lifted the boy up off his shoulders, and he set him down on his own feet on the forest floor. And then the wild man made a bed of moss for the boy. And he told him to lie down and sleep. And the boy lay down on the soft moss. And he went to sleep. And he slept through the night. And in the morning the wild man came and he woke the boy, and you can feel the big, strong hand of the wild man shaking your shoulder. And then the wild man, you can open your eyes now, then the wild man led the boy to the pool, to a clear, deep pool of cold water. And he said to him, "Sit down here by this pool. Sit down here by this pool and watch over it. And take care that nothing should fall into it, that it shouldn't become tainted." I said, "Well, so the boy did. What would you do if the wild man told you to do something?" He sat down. He sat down there at the edge of this pool of clear, cold water, and he looked into it. And as he sat, and as he looked, he saw a fish once in a while drift by. It was bright gold. He saw a water snake wriggling through the water. Bright gold, shimmering in the sunlight. And the boy sat and he watched and he watched. But the hours were long. And at one point, the boy unconsciously just moved his hand over his head, ran his hands through his hair as was his habit to do, and one hair fell down and fell into the water.
Oh no.
Oh no, said. Are you on payroll too? Oh no, said the boy. And he pulled the hair out of the water. It was bright gold. Bright gold. Oh no, said the boy. When he came home, the wild man knew everything.
What has happened to the well, he asked.
Nothing. Nothing.
Don't try to fool me. Thou hast dipped thy finger into the well. Now, I told you before that you will not see your father and mother again, but that I would keep you with me because I am fond of you and I feel compassion for you. But you are not doing very well. I'll give you 2 more tries. I will come back tomorrow and see if you have continued and obeyed my instructions.
And the boy hadn't thought about his finger. He had seen that the hair was golden, but now he looked and he saw that just that place where he pulled it out of the water, the tip of his finger was golden. The tip of his finger was golden. He hadn't even noticed, and the wild man had known. The wild man said, "Sit again by the well." And so, at the very break of dawn, the boy was already sitting there at the edge of the pool, looking down into the cold water. But the hours were long. And then his finger began to hurt terribly, terribly. And he was drowsy, and his finger hurt, and before he knew it, he put his finger into the water. Oh no, and he pulled it out, and his whole finger was bright gold. He tried to rub it off. He tried to wash it off. Nothing he did availed. And so when the wild man came back, he hid his finger behind his back, hoping that the wild man wouldn't see it.
But I have seen it. I know what you're thinking. I'm ahead of you here. I will give you 1 more time. Your hair had fallen in the well. Now I know you dipped your finger in the well. I will give you 1 more try. Tomorrow night I will come and see how well you have obeyed me. So on the 3rd day...
Yeah, no matter how hard the boy explained, no matter what excuses he gave, it did no good. And so the 3rd day, again, he sat by the well. Now the hours passed even more slowly. And the boy was just a boy, after all. The hours were long. And as he looked at the water, he noticed that there were eyes looking up at him from the water. And he leaned over to see them more clearly, and he thought that they must be his own eyes, though there was a little bit of a riffle on the water. And he kept looking and looking, and he wasn't sure it was his own eyes. Maybe it was something else in the water, and sometimes it appeared there were many eyes looking at him, and sometimes it looked like his eyes. And he looked and looked, and he leaned down closer and closer, trying to see, and then his hair fell from his shoulders, and it fell into the water. oh no! And he pulled his hair out of the water, but all of his hair had turned golden.
Oh no.
All of his hair has turned golden. And he took his handkerchief out and he bound it tightly around his head. But the wild man knew everything.
Wild man coming back, knowing everything, said, "Take that handkerchief off your head."
And the hair spilled down and it shone like the sun. And then the wild man said,
"You have not stood the trial, and you can stay with me no longer. You must go out into the world and you will learn what poverty is. But I will allow you this because I do have compassion for you. You set me free. I will allow you this. If any trouble comes upon you, or you are disturbed in a way, and you feel you need my help, come to the edge of the forest and call out, 'Iron John, Iron John,' and I will come and I will help you because my power is greater than you think. I have money enough, more than anyone in the world, and I have gold and silver in abundance. I have everything you need." So the king's son left the forest, and he walked on and on by beaten and unbeaten paths. He walked on until he came to a great city. And there, in that great city, in the center of it, was a palace. And he went to the palace, and he offered to do work, to stay at the palace, but they had no work for him because, frankly, he had no skills. He had not learned anything. But the cook took him in, had compassion on him, and said, I'll find something for you to do. You can sweep up here, you can rake the cinders, you can wash things down. I can make use of you. So the boy did various things around the castle. He always kept his hat on, though, because he did not want the golden hair discovered. Now, it came one time that the cook said, "I need your help. I need you to serve the king. My other help is not available. Serve the king." So the boy went and served the king, and he did a good job, good enough, except he had his hat on. And the king said, "Where did you ever grow up? Don't you know better than to wear your cap in the presence of the king?" So he then...
And the boy said, but Your Highness, I can't take my hat off.
Yes.
I have a sore on my head. I can't take my hat off. I have a sore on my head. Say that. I can't take my hat off. I have a sore on my head.
Okay. The king yelled at the cook, "How could you hire someone like this who has no sense, doesn't even take his hat off in front of me? Get rid of him." But the cook had pity and compassion for the boy, so he exchanged him for the gardener's boy. So the king would not see our lad. He worked off in the gardener.
And now, the gardener's boy, the king's son, had to hoe and dig in the ground and pull weeds. And he had to endure the cold of the winter and the fierceness of the winter winds. And in the summer, he had to endure the heat and the baking sun. And he always was careful to keep his hat on that no one would see his golden hair, because he was afraid what would happen if they did. But one day came when it was so hot. It was so hot that he could barely stand it anymore. And so he looked around. He looked around carefully to be sure that no one was around, that he would not be seen. And then he took his hat off so that he could enjoy the freshness, the coolness of the air upon his head. Close your eyes now, please. What is it that you are afraid to show? What shame have you carried for a long time, or imagined shame? Something unacceptable that if people knew, you would be even more set off in the margins, even more alone. Or what sadness do you hold? What sadness do you hold? Losses. Losses of position, losses of reputation, loss of parents, of children, of friends, loved ones, spouses, losses, holes in your heart. What places do you hold tight? You hold tightly shut for fear that you'll hurt even more. You'll be hurt even further. What angers do you hold? You're afraid to let out. What fear do you carry that haunts you sometimes like a ghost when you wake in the night? These things that you don't want to show, that you keep hidden under your hat so that nobody will see.
What gifts have you hidden away? And there can be reasons other than shame for you to hide things away. Often, we hide it because we don't want to show our joy. We don't want to show our vulnerabilities. We hide things away. What gifts have you hidden away? Gifts that might have been of use in the world. What gifts have you hidden away?
And so, this day the sun was so hot and beat down on his head so hard that he looked around to see that nobody was looking, to be sure that no one would see, and he took his hat off so that the cool wind, a little bit of fresh air, could cool him a bit. And as he did so, his hair fell down, and the sunlight struck it and reflected and bounced up through the window of the daughter of the king, who saw these sparks of golden light flying around in her room. And she ran to the window to look down, and she saw there in the garden a boy with golden hair. And what would you do if you were the king's daughter and you saw a boy with golden hair? She immediately said,
Boy, bring me a wreath of flowers. I am the princess. You must do what I say. Bring me a wreath of flowers. Now, we suspected that there would be a princess sooner or later, a king's daughter. Well, here she is, and she is ordering him to bring me a wreath of flowers.
well, the first thing he did was to put his hat back on as fast as he could. Oh no! And he went looking for flowers. But he went out to the edge of the garden, out in the fields beyond the garden, and he gathered a bunch of wildflowers. And as he was walking up the stairs, he happened to pass the head gardener.
The gardener said, hey, boy, I know you just started working for me, but you should know better. How can you take those common, ordinary garden flowers to the princess? Go back. Pick out the rarest, the most precious flowers. Make a bouquet, a garland of that, and take it to the princess.
But the boy said, "Oh no, it's the wildflowers that smell the sweetest and that she will like the best." And so he on up the stairs he went, ignoring the hen gardener. And when he came into the presence of the king's daughter, she immediately ran for him and tried to pull off his hat. And she did. And his golden hair came streaming down. He grabbed the hat back. He put the hat back on. How many times have you done that, right? He put the hat back on. And she tried and tried to convince him to take it off, but he would not. And so she gave him a handful of golden coins. But he had no use for the coins. And when he left, he gave them to the gardener. And he said, here are some playthings for your children. The next day, the king's son, the other king's son, the boy, was working in the garden. Just so you don't forget who he is. Was working in the garden, and again, the princess came.
The king's daughter called down for him, and in all of her commanding majesty, she said, "Boy, bring me a wreath of field flowers."
And so he gathered the flowers, he went up the stairs. As soon as he got in the door, she grabbed for his hat, but he held it tight with both hands. And she struggled, and he would not let it go. She finally, huffing and puffing, gave up and gave him another handful of coins, which he took and gave to the gardener and said, "Here are some more toys for your children." On the third day, he was working in the garden when the king's daughter called down to him,
"Boy, bring me a wreath of field flowers. I am the princess, and that I am ordering you, bring me a wreath of field flowers."
And so he did. And he brought her the flowers, and again she lunged for his cap, and she pulled and pulled, but he held tight, and this time he wouldn't even take the coins, and just marched down the stairs.
He would not take the money, so we're going to ask you as we leave this portion of the story, we're going to ask you, we know that the boy was hiding his hair. What is it you were hiding? Shame? Uncertainty, old wounds? What are you hiding? Remember, the gifts can be right next to wounds. They can be disguised as wounds. They can be covered up as wounds and shame. But we're all carrying some gold. What are the gifts you are carrying?
There's this tradition in a number of different traditions of the wounded healer. The wounded healer, that a healer can't really be a healer until he's wounded. And it's the gift, it's the wound that releases the healing powers. The wound allows for the wisdom to emerge and the compassion to emerge in order to heal others. So I'd like to ask you now to take the opportunity to go a little deeper. We've already had quite a few opportunities in this less than 24 hours since we arrived to drop down into being vulnerable, into sharing our hearts, sharing our pains. So I'm asking you to take the opportunity to drop down even a little deeper and share more honestly, more vulnerably with each other, and to explore a little further in what are the gifts that you feel either you are beginning to discover in your wounds or that still lie there, still await you. What can you make of these pains that we all have, these wounds that we all sustain? What can you make of these in order to serve other people and serve yourself and serve your life? So we'll break into groups of 3, and we'll take about 15 minutes again. So about 5.